با عرض سلام با گفتگوی رفاه که از آدرس مؤسسه مطالعات اقتصادی و حقوقی افغانستان تحت پروژه اکادمی این مؤسسه برای شما پیشکش و تقدیم می‌گردد. خوش آمدید. در این برنامه امروز ما محترم آقای امیت چاندرا که یک تن از فعالان عرصه حقوق بشر و آزادی در سطح بین الملل هستند را با خود در استودیو داریم و از ایشان بیشتر پیرامون موضوع کارآفرینی یا entrepreneurship خواهیم شنید. Today our conversation with Mr. Chandra will be about the youths and entrepreneurship, and we would like to have a conversation with Mr. Chandra about what is entrepreneurship and what is the role of youths, what are the rules of the government, or and different other important questions, which we are sure that the knowledge and the experience of Mr. Chandra on this field and on this issues can lead the viewers or the beneficiaries of this video to know more about what is entrepreneurship and what is and who is entrepreneurs and what they should do to launch their own businesses especially in Afghanistan. Mr. Chandra, thank you so much for giving us your time and welcome to our office.
Thank you very much, Khalid, for inviting me to AELSO. I'm very glad to be here and be part of your conversation, your effort to promote the ideas of liberty. I hope this discussion happens to be productive as we planned for it.
Thanks, dear Amit. As I said before, today we are going to talk about the entrepreneurship and youths. At first, we would like to ask from you that generally, what is entrepreneurship? If you could please just tell something about the definition of entrepreneurship, who can act as an entrepreneur in the society?
Well, in general terms, I'll say the closest term, the term which is very close to entrepreneurship is business. So simply I would say all the kinds of businesses that you see around can be categorized in some way or the other as an entrepreneurship. Though I would differentiate a little bit in terms of any running business which is in pattern, like a grocery shop which is, let's say, set up by my father. I'm running the business, it's like usual business. But what differentiate entrepreneurs from usual businesses are the ability to see future market, take the risk, and have the ability to innovate all the time. So I would say entrepreneurs are those people who are innovating businesses, not just running businesses. So that's the difference. In broader sense, all the businesses are entrepreneurial venture, but if you get into the definition and you want to differentiate, I would say that entrepreneurs are those who are always innovating new business models, not just sticking to one. Because think of the first business which was created. Who created? Who thought there is a demand and supply, or outside here I can set up a small little shop and there are enough customers who have need for a particular product. So someone who is thinking about all such ideas and then implementing the biggest virtue, or I'll say traits of an entrepreneur, is someone who is taking that risk and executing that idea, is not just ideating something.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hamid. So as I said, the main topic for today is to persuade and encourage young people they should launch their own businesses in the society, especially in Afghanistan. What do you think about the entrepreneurship relation between youths? So, I mean, could you please kindly share your thoughts or ideas about the connection of entrepreneurship with youths? What are the role of youths in a society they should create jobs for themselves, and also they should pave the way for others to at least they should feed themselves.
Well, certainly, since I come from India, I'll take a couple of examples from India as well, which to give you a better picture of what we are talking about and how things could change. Number one, in the modern society, we see that there has to be enough job opportunities, right? And if there aren't enough job opportunities for people, which means the human resource we have is not being productively engaged. So people have to be productive, and when they're productive, they're adding to the society. In today's term, we unfortunately have started considering jobs as only a formal employment. Otherwise, a job could be anything: innovating, repairing this television can be a job. Thinking of inventing new model of phone could be a job. And slowly, I think governments across the world realizing that they cannot be producer of jobs as a formal employment as it has been considered. And that is why I slowly see even shift within Indian government, Indian society, Indian politics, that government will not be able to create employment for majority of its 120, 130 million population, right? So you cannot. And therefore, finally what you have to do is you have to allow people to become productive on their own. And that is, I think, what even government of India has realized, and therefore there is enough emphasis on a scheme that they have decided, what is called Startup India. Meaning it's a simple shift in position from where government used to say, hey, we will create jobs for everyone and give you jobs. From there they are saying, hey, create your business, create your ideas, implement it, we will provide services and facilities. So if you want registration process, we'll simplify it, we can give you some rebates in taxation, we can provide you access to finance so that you create jobs and jobs. Now, whenever we are talking about entrepreneurship meaning creating job for myself, creating something as a business model which sustains, adding a value to the society because it's a new stuff coming into the market. And all of that, whenever you start talking about entrepreneurship, by default you will connect it with youth. Why? Because it requires fresh idea, fresh thinking, new energy, new way of implementing things rather than old ways. And that is why by default, if you look into entrepreneurs, they come at a young age, and that is when the idea it requires fertile mind, it requires focused attitude, it requires risk-taking ability, it requires the zeal to prove yourself that okay, I have this new idea, I can make it work, and this will create something altogether new. So even 50 years ago, we had nothing called a mobile phone. Today we have, and it has become such an integral part of our life today that we cannot live away from our cell phone for 1 hour or 1 day, right? So someone who thought that there is a need for a device, something like mobile phone, when no one else thought, those are our entrepreneurs. And as it requires, I already said, young, energetic, fertile brain, and the risk-taking ability and energy and zeal to prove that yes, this is my new idea and I can do this, and by doing this create more value, more productivity in society and serve people more, is what relates entrepreneurship with youth.
Thank you for the great insight. So, do we have good entrepreneurship or bad entrepreneurship?
No, certainly not. All entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship, and yeah, some of the ideas, when people are trying, it may succeed. Some of the ideas might fail, but as we say, failure is one step towards success. So even your failed ideas helps you identify what was wrong in the idea, whether the idea was wrong or the implementation was wrong. If an implementation was wrong, where did we fail? And that actually creates your next step when you are executing your new idea. So for future, it makes you further more mature entrepreneur. So I won't say there is a good entrepreneur or bad entrepreneur. It's all part of the process.
What do you think about the skills? What skills are needed to be an entrepreneur?
Well, as I already started talking about it, in terms of skill, you have to have a great insight. Insight in terms of, let's say, as I gave the example of mobile phones, right? Who had imagined that you require a device like that, or a computer? And then someone, let's say 30 years ago, envisioned that you can have a device like this which will start doing all your office work. So you have to develop that insight. You also have to kind of predict where the humanity is moving. How is future going to look like? So let's say if I have to think of a product 20 years down the line, I will have to think of what kind of society it will be, what kind of human behavior it will be, what kind of goods and services people require. Right? So the first and important skill is you have to have a vision based on your insight into the humanity, market, human behavior, and the demand and supply of goods and services. So you have to have your insight. Second, when you have your insight, then you have to create an idea. So you have a broad vision about something, and then slowly you specify that this is one particular idea that I want to work on it. Once you have ideated your vision, then you have to think of an execution plan. How are you going to execute it? And when it comes to execute, as long as it is idea is in your mind and my mind. But you cannot be an entrepreneur, I cannot be an entrepreneur until I have implemented this. Now when you are going to implement, what do you require? Number one, finance, right? If it requires to implement things, you require money and resources and wealth. You require human resources to support in executing those ideas. You require a zeal, a great in-depth faith in your idea that yes, it is and it will work and I can make it work. And the most important ability, as I keep saying, for entrepreneurs is risk-taking ability, because everything comes with a risk. If I am going to dedicate my 5 years creating a new app, which means I cannot do anything else, which means I have an opportunity lost for other things. So I have to factor the cost of my opportunity lost. And therefore, the most important thing is converting ideas into some products and services, facilitating that process, and in this entire process, taking that risk.
Let's talk about the needs. Although you mentioned a few points, but I would like to ask you specific questions. If you advise someone, or if you advise a student or a young people, and if they ask from you that what are the 3 important needs to be a successful entrepreneurs, so what will you say for them? Just 3, the most important ones.
3 things that an individual would require to become a successful entrepreneur is have a solid idea which is based on facts and evidence, not just random idea. 2, you have to be great executor, you have to be implementer. The devil lies in detail. How do you make that idea work? There are hundreds of ideas in this world, but not everyone converts into actionable. So have the idea, think of detailing that is required to make it work, and you should have that ability to take risk in the process to get things done. That is what I'll say in terms of need. But you can also think in terms of scope, right? Scope meaning, where is the need? Do we need hundreds of entrepreneurs in Afghanistan, or there is no scope for businesses? And that is where actually I feel, based on my observation as I have spent a couple of months here, my feeling is that Afghanistan has wonderful scope. It has a great possibility of new entrepreneurs to come. Why? Because I see a great need of market. Since the country has been in conflict and war for last 4 decades, market and market mechanism and the basics which is required for market to flourish has not flourished, and therefore market is of a very limited quantity, quality. There is a need for new products, new services which is not available, and that all of those problems can be solved with an entrepreneurial ability only. It cannot be done just by some aid work or just by government planning. And therefore I see the country has huge scope for entrepreneurship. Completely new culture promoting business and trade has to come, and I can see it is coming. I see people with inherent ability to do business. So most of the time I see most of the Afghans, they are involved in some or the other kind of economic activities, right? Whether they are driving cars or repairing cycle or making food, whatever. So they are involved in some or the other kind of entrepreneurial activities, though we will have to think about it, why most of those businesses and their ventures are small. How could that scale up? What kind of facilities and infrastructure required? And that will actually kind of make the country go forward on a very fast track.
Okay, Mr. Hamid, let's now talk about the role of government in entrepreneurship.
In my perspective, I see the role of government in case of entrepreneurship also in the same manner as I see the role of government in any other sphere of life. So what do I see the role of the government? The role of the government here is to facilitate that process, right? So market mechanism, entrepreneurship, these are something which organically develops. It's a natural process. You got an idea of creating a new product, a new kind of shoes which is more comfortable. So it's a natural process. When people who are in shoe business, they're thinking of that, we are using the same kind of shoes for hundreds of years, the same style, same design. Could we rethink the way our shoes are designed, which is more comfortable? Because 100 years ago, you had different kind of knowledge. Today, in society, we have different kind of knowledge and more research and data and technology, and everything is available. Can we use it to design a completely new shoes? So this is a very natural and organic process which evolves on its own. You cannot impose entrepreneurship. You cannot mandate that this year I want 1,000 new businesses to come up, and they must come up with 1,000 new ideas, right? So it happens on its own. What do you require? What is the role of government in this case? You facilitate that process. So you see, are there hurdles, or what are the hurdles for these new ideas to come into reality? What is it that is stopping people to convert that idea into action, into deliverable? Is that and that also evolves on its own. Where I think government unfortunately comes into the picture is when they start restricting, because government may not be comfortable with all of those innovative ideas. What all is fertilizing inside your mind. So there could be something good, there could be something bad, right? And that is where government comes to regulate it, regulate what you are thinking, what is your idea, whether this idea is going to be useful for our society or it is going to be bad for our society. And therefore slowly what develops is a regulatory structure where the government through its regulatory bodies starts regulating your activities, saying what you can do, what you cannot do. Okay, even if you have idea, come explain to me, prove that this idea is very useful, then only I will allow you to work. And in this process what unfortunately happens is there happens to be a lot of restriction which starts working as barrier, as a hurdle. So rather than saying you can do everything but don't do this XYZ, the regulatory design happens to be anything you want to do, come first and get our permission. And that is where problem begins, because those who are sitting there to give permission, they may not have the same kind of insight as the one entrepreneur has. For an example, let's say 50 years ago, if I said I can put this television to work by pushing a button here in my hand through a remote, people would not have believed. This is joking. How can you are not even touching the television and still making it work? But someone who had the ideas, who had the knowledge of that remote sensing technology could think of a device. And that is where the problem happens, is when there is too much of restriction, too much of authority on these regulatory bodies, which does not allow innovation to spread. And that is why at times we have seen, let's take an example, maybe some Afghan here has a great idea but he's not able to execute it. He goes to UK, US, Hong Kong, and there he is able to implement. So Afghans outside Afghanistan are more prosperous, more entrepreneurial, making more wealth, making more name and fame. But inside Afghanistan, they are unable to do. Why they are unable to do? There are hundreds of problems. And one of the important problems where I see that originates from government action is the regulation. Rest, market figures it out on its own.
So as you visited Afghanistan and you expended a lot of time in Kabul and also in other cities of the country, and I'm sure that you noted that there are a lot of business opportunities for Afghan people, especially for youths. So if you return back to your home country, and if a person asks from you that what are the business opportunities in Afghanistan, what you will say for them? What are the business opportunities in the country such as Afghanistan that passed more than 3 decade wars and is still the conflicts and war are going on?
I see ample opportunity of entrepreneurship here in Afghanistan. Almost everything that I see, every product and service I see available in market, I see there is a scope of doing things better. And in some sense, what, let's say in my may not be the most appropriate language, I say it's a virgin market, which means it has not been explored as much. Once again, the biggest hurdle has been security so far. So anything, when I look into, let's say, publishing business, the superstore, the price that they're selling at, the quality of the service you receive, even the communication, the mobile phones, mobile phone operators, there's network providers. You look at the cost and look at the quality and you see, man, you are making millions of money but not providing quality of service, while we see that better quality at a lower price is available. Yet, if someone asks me, which I have been thinking and talking with few of my colleagues, if I have to prioritize those sectors, I would put my money into the basics. The first and basic and most important service that people are looking for here is the health service, because not so good quality of health services available because of lack of doctors, because of hospital. People have to go outside, and when you are going outside, your budget goes double and triple, because you have to fly people, you have to cover the cost of 3 people minimum, accommodation and food and everything. So health is one. I see great scope, great opportunity in education sector. The quality of education is fundamental thing, the basic that you require to build a society, because of being war-ridden country and several other reasons why the public education system is not working well. I see huge opportunity in basic education, so I'll put into something as basic as education, health, consumer driven, so that you have better quality of products, communication, power generation. And in Afghanistan at the moment, I just pick up anything. And to my colleagues, I keep saying, if you guys are able to solve your security problem, all rest of the problem will solve on its own. Just solve the security problem. Just by promoting tourism, Afghanistan can be rich, just by promoting tourism, because I've seen such a wonderful places. People go to Switzerland for skating. Why? Yeah. If it's a safe, secure place, these are the beautiful mountains and lakes. Thousands of tourists will come. In fact, more so people will also come for study purpose, to understand what are the laws, what things have changed in last 40 years. So just by promoting tourism, you'll be able to make a lot of money.
Although you mentioned something about the adventure for running of business, and also you mentioned something about war and peace and these things. But in here, as the last question, what do you think about the peace and entrepreneurship, or the connection between these two things? For the countries such as Afghanistan, that still we are under conflict with each others, and there are a lot of issues which don't allow us to go forward on our own life. So the security issue is one of the important things. How do you advise the entrepreneurs to they should take the risk and run their businesses in the country?
If I think from the peace perspective, peace in society can be built just by promoting the idea of entrepreneurship. Now why? Because when you have entrepreneurial attitude, entrepreneurial way of thinking and looking at things, by default you start engaging yourself in more productive activity. You have a positive outlook, you are optimistic, and you don't want to waste your time and energy into anything which is not productive, right? And therefore, let's say if roughly the population of country Afghanistan is 30 million roughly, and all of these young population are engaged in some or the other kind of entrepreneurial activities, there will be no war, because there will be no conflict. Why? The virtue of business, virtue of entrepreneurship is that the person who is giving benefits. So let's say if I'm selling you a product, I benefit, right? But by buying that product also, you too benefit, and therefore there is a mutual win-win. And I would never like to harm you as my customer, because harming you is harming myself, and therefore my success, my win, my growth depends upon growth of others, and therefore there is harmony in society, right? There is some wise person who has already said that when goods don't cross borders, bullets do. And when I'm talking in a society, when look at the border. In fact, today only we had a roundtable discussion on cross-border engagement, taking example of communities living around the border, across the border, both in Afghanistan and Tajikistan. And the findings were that there is a larger cooperation because people are traveling, exchanging goods, and services. So they, as an Afghan going to Tajikistan to sell goods, I have to know about their choices and liking, right? Tajikistan people, to come to Afghanistan and do a business, they have to know what we like and don't like, and therefore they have to be respectful, right? And then exchange of goods and services happening, which is also by default. It is not by order. By default, automatically they are promoting peace, tolerance, accepting each other. There is harmony. And therefore I see, just by promoting entrepreneurship in the society, you can promote and maintain peace.
And just the last question, by considering of your knowledge and experiences, if you advise a young person of Afghan regarding running their business or entrepreneurship, so or if you have some recommendations, at least 2 or 3. So what are your 2 or 3 messages or recommendations or advices for Afghan youths who wants to stay in the country and work for a more free and prosperous and independent Afghanistan?
Well, my message to all young Afghans in the country will be, hopefully, we are very optimistic that this peace process will be successful, and there will be end to conflict and war and all the war crimes that has happened. Afghanistan is a resource-rich and beautiful country. I do find wonderful opportunities here for the businesses. What you require is a little bit of facilitation, little bit of mentoring, little bit of hand-holding, and things will work out. I would encourage all of them to engage into some or the other kind of business, whatever they think is suitable to them, whatever their interest lies.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hamid, for giving us this opportunity to have this conversation with you. We look forward for your contributions in the future with AELSO team in Afghanistan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, to have me in the show, and I hope you find this conversation useful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. بینندگان نهایت گرامی، بسیار زیاد تشکر از اینکه بیننده یکی از برنامه‌های دیگه گفتگو برای رفاه بودین. ما با تولید و تهیه این سلسله برنامه‌ها، هدف اصلی ما آموزش و ترویج ارزش‌های جامعه باز برای تمامی مردم افغانستان است. ما در نظر داریم که این سلسله برنامه‌ها را به زبان‌های ملی و به زبان‌های بین‌المللی و با چهره‌های نخبه و تحصیل کرده افغانستان ثبت، آماده و نشر بکنیم. شما میتونید که انتقادات و طرح‌ها و پیشنهادات خود را به خاطر خوبتر شدن این برنامه‌ها و این گفتمان‌ها و این گفتگوها با تیم ما و با اعضای دفتر ما شریک بسازید. تا برنامه دیگر، بدرود.